Hey, what's up guys? This is Jimmy Duraide from BTS Lab. Today I'll be making another live play review from one of our BTS Lab members. So today I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, so he's called Masiej. I'm not sure how to pronounce his first name, but he provided us with the footage of him playing 200 NL reg tables on GG. So basically we're going to be going through, his footage. We're going to try to take some look at some possible leaks he will have. Take also a look at like the table regular tables, table selection and all that. The game seems decent. So the labels are, I think from what I read, he put them in the comments. I think it's purple. They are reg. Green is a recreational. And then he's also labeling his tables. So the blue ones, I think, is basically, let me just take a look into it. So the player labels are purple reg, blue weaker reg, red good reg, green fun player, orange station, and yellow crazy fun player. He also has labels for his table, so brown shitty table, go away, blue not a good table, first to leave, green good table, red higher stake shot. I mean, it's like when you're playing reg tables, it might make some sense to be maybe like try to table select, and by changing the felt colors, that's what he does. I'm not sure what's his criteria for wanting to change table, like for example on the top middle. So let's go ahead and call that table 1, and the middle table 2, top right table 3, and then down here table 4, and here table 5, and here obviously it's going to be table 6. But so far from his labels, you would say that this is a shitty table, where he has a regular here, 2 recreational, he doesn't have the Jesus seat, but has very good seat on both of them. So they're sitting 86 big blind, 50 big blinds. And I think yellow is like crazy, whatever. Like, let me just go back. Yellow crazy for fun player. So like, this is definitely a table that you don't want to leave. So I'm not sure how he actually proceeds to be table selecting and all that type of stuff. But like this is definitely a table you want to be playing. Here is like, if he's a recreational, we have direct seat to the left. That's great. We have this recreational here. This table, again, we have 3 regs to our right, but we have 2 recreational in the pot, in the table here. We don't have great position on them, but there's still 2 out there. So, it's still decent. If there was only 1 and it's like sitting 30 big blinds on our left, it wouldn't be worth it to be playing that table, as the rake is really, really high. But given the fact that there's 2, it might be worth it to actually play this table. And then once you have positions like here, those are definitely tables that you want to be playing, since they're recreational and we're sitting on their left. So yeah, but I'm not sure, to be honest, I don't do that. I think just switching felt colors and all that, it's gonna take like a bit of time for you to lower mental energy to do that. Not sure if it's really worth it. The thing is that you have to set yourself with certain criteria, always be proactive. It really sucks with the reg table stuff, that's what's really nice about playing Russian Cash or Zoom, is that you just click, you sit, and then you play. Here, table's gonna break. There's gonna be like a lot of stuff going on that you have to keep your mind active, basically, and always look for new tables. Always look for your actual tables if they become bad or something like that. So we're not really gonna I wanted to speak a few words about that now, but again, I'm not sure what's his criteria for selecting like a good game and all that type of stuff. But he does have to be pretty selective, since the rake is really high here on the regular tables at 200 NL GG. So let's get into the footage. It should be a pretty nice pace, since it's regular table. So for tabling Zoom is much faster. So hopefully we get to see some interesting situation. I started the footage a bit later because the first minutes or so he was only two tabling. Ace-9 suited, pretty standard open. So we face a call. So 10-5 deuce. It's a board where, I mean, like I always say that in many. Okay, so he switched the felt colors, which makes sense now. So yeah, so basically 10-5 deuce. We have. What I wanted to say is basically whenever we face a cold caller in position, we have to do quite a bit of checking because I mean his range. I mean depending on how bad he is, you know, like if he's really bad and he cold calls like a 25% range, we can still like start to be aggressive again. But if he has like a 5 to 10% range, we have to mostly check like a lot on most boards. Now that the fact that the small blind came along to go with it makes it even worse, right? Because I mean the equity is split three-way. We're out of position, but only to one player, which is also I mean, it would be worse if we were under the gun and we're out of position to two players. But again, it's not the ideal situation. Now we have ace high. We have poor backdoors as we don't have backdoor flush draw. We don't have good backdoor straight draw as well. So like I would prefer betting a hand like ace-6, for example, because we can pick up like better straight draws on the turn and that type of stuff. I think this hand will mostly get checked. We're gonna want to be betting stuff that has a bit less showdown value and a bit better backdoor turn equity. If we were to bet, we don't need to bet big, but I mean we're playing against two recreational, so it doesn't really matter. We can play our hand a bit more face up. Small blind's range should connect pretty well with this board, like hands like pocket fives, pocket deuces, medium pocket pairs, type of stuff, or like something like king 10 off, ace 10 off. Here I would just check again. We're also going to get to realize a bit more showdown value than we should. And then I think it's just an easy fold. Jamie's going to have a bunch of like pocket sixes type of hand. Or, I mean, I think like the button player might be incentivized to be betting those lower pocket pair on the flop. So I'm not really sure. It's hard also to put them exactly on a range because they're recreational and they're not, like they don't even know what they're doing. Queen 10 suited we're going to be playing. And then we can also fast forward again because he's waiting for the big blind on all the tables. So let's see what happens here. Pocket 10s we're going to be playing, ace-5 off 2. We have to be like, regarding the rake, I mean, like we have to be a bit tighter. Just because like the rake, I'm not sure exactly what it is at 200, but like at 1K, it's like 7.5 to 8. And then at 500, it's like over that as well, which is very high. Queen 6 suited, very standard open. What we could do, you open 2.5. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that sizing. I think we can also raise smaller. Like I was a big advocate of raising 2.5 or on the bigger side before, just because building a pretty good pot pre-flop and then like putting a lot of pressure on the flop, turn and river. Like, I mean, that's where we're going to get most of our win rate, right? Like button big blind, because on the button, that's where we have the highest win rate and all that. But with all the like the solver charts out there and all that type of stuff, we see like a lot of charts actually like solve for like 2.5 or stuff like that. So like once you start using the bigger size, you kind of make big blind's life easy, because he just has to defend very tight. You know, like if you open 3x, I mean, he's gonna have to 3-bet like quite a bit and just fold, and you don't put any of his like medium strength hand or like weaker hands into a tough spot. But if you start opening like I see a lot of people now switching to like min raises and like really small open raise sizes on the button, and what happens is that you just put like big blinds, like a lot of big blinds range into a tough spot, basically. Like hands like he has to defend really wide against a min raise, and now what happens is that you get to like widen big blinds range significantly, and then you can start to be like a lot more aggressive on even like textures that you would not be in general. So like let's say this board is Jack 7-4 flush draw, right? By opening 2.5 or bigger, like this is not a board where we can just c-bet range for 1/3 pot. But if we were to actually min open on the button, right, and then big blind's range is really wide, and he's gonna have to defend hands like king deuce off, king 3 off, like that type of stuff, like 5-3 offsuit, that type of stuff, like really garbage hands, then you can start to be very aggressive even on like a bit more drawy boards and stuff like that. It really depends on the strategy you want to use. I think like using like a bigger size with more polarized strategies on the flop is fine, or using a really small size and just like being very aggressive on the flop is fine as well. You know, like it can go either way. Like lately I've been preferring to using a smaller size and try to put like big blind's range into a tougher spot, if you want to put it this way. So yeah, so here, having said that, this is not a spot where we're going to be c-betting range here. We're going to be using a mixed strategy with a big bet. As far as the sizing, we can go anywhere from like 75 to pot to even overbet on this flop. I would stick with anything from like 75 to pot. This hand is particularly good. I mean, we don't have showdown value. We have backdoor flush draw, plus we have pretty decent backdoor straight draw. So I think it makes that hand a pretty nice candidate, and I would bet that hand pretty often on the flop with a big size. So the first thing I just realized here is, I mean, he has, as far as his betting tabs, he has 33, 50, 66, and 77. So basically what I would do is I would remove one of these. I mean, they're pretty close, so it's not really gonna change a whole lot. And then I would add something like a overbet or something like that. Just because, I mean, 66, the difference between those both is not that much. And just removing one of those, putting like an overbet size here, just gonna make your life a bit easier. I mean, it's nothing crazy, but it's just something that you can do. So I like the fact that he went close to pot here. 6-8 offsuit, this is gonna be a fold. This is gonna be a fold. Make sure that, yeah, I mean, he doesn't show his Excel spreadsheet in the video, but anyway, 6-8 offsuit usually is a fold with the 500Z rake. I mean, of course, if you have if you're playing against a recreational or a weaker player, of course we can defend. Against a regular, since he has the purple tag, I would just fold here. Voucheras is his screen name. So against the check raise, we're not going to do anything. And then 6-8 offsuit, I mean, like, we're going to have to defend pretty wide here, but I think this hand just goes in the muck. I would have folded pre-flop also, like, based on like 500Z reg, basically, like, this is mostly a fold. So given the fact that here it's gonna be even, it's gonna be even higher rake, then I would just fold pre-flop. And then against the sizing here, I mean, it's a pretty small size. But again, like, we don't have an over to the 9. Like, if we had a hand like 10-7 suited, like, this would be a defend, of course. We can even raise and all that. But like 6-8 offsuit is like getting called with about, like, I would say 20% of the time with the 500 zoom rake. So like, since it's now like much higher rake here, then I would just fold, like, purely fold pre-flop, and then we can adjust our range once we are actually facing a recreational where we can defend a bit wider. Here, I mean, once we start raising here, that tells me that, like, we might be overdoing it against the population. It might be fine. But again, we're going to have so many stuff that we can just raise, you know, with at least a backdoor flush draw, that type of stuff, you know. Now we don't even have like one over and all that. So like, it's just a matter of, like, I think it's fine to be aggressive. We just have to be careful, because when we're blind versus blind and we defend, I mean, we're going to have a really wide range here. So, I mean, we're going to have to be really selective about what type of hands we choose to raise and all that type of stuff. But, I mean, again, I like the fact that he's being aggressive and all. I think it might be working well with the population, because he's going to have to defend, like hands with backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, you know, like, he's gonna have to defend pretty wide against the raise here, which I think people will overfold. And you rep a lot of 9x, offsuit 9x as well, which is, I mean, totally fine. And yeah, I mean, I like the fact that he thought about being aggressive, but I just not sure about, like, his hand selection. I mean, we're gonna have so many other stuff to be raising with. I think, like, just folding here and then raising sometimes is fine as well. I mean, calling is out of the question. He was making sure he won the pot. Not sure what he was looking at, but yeah. King 10 off, I mean, this is also close. It's like closer than you guys think, like against the under the gun, like hands like Jack 10 off type of stuff. Like, it's really like, it's just getting folded. Even hands like King 10 off, like against middle position, for example, like, it's really close. It's not even purely getting called with the 500 zoom rake, basically. So like, when you're playing against the under the gun, it's actually getting folded, like, pretty much always. And then hands like Jack 10 off, Queen 10 off are not getting called purely as well. Again, like, if you're playing against a weaker player, we can widen our calling range a bit, you know. But if you're playing against a regular and all that, and you're playing in a high rake environment, we have to be really careful about not defending too wide, especially where I think the rake is potentially between 9 and 10 big blinds. I'm not sure, but I mean, it can definitely be. If that's the case, I mean, like, you just have to be really careful pre-flop. Jack 9 suited, we're not gonna call here. I mean, we're gonna be out of position to 3 players. We're also gonna flop some dominated draws. It's gonna be really hard for us to get to showdown. And, you know, like, if we have a flush and all the money goes in, I mean, it's gonna be really hard. It's gonna be a really tough spot for us, because if all the money goes in, we're almost always gonna be behind. So if I were to call here, I would try to get hands that can flop the nuts, basically. So hands like pocket sixes, pocket fives, I mean, even those are fine. I wouldn't start calling hands down like pocket deuces, you know, because even then, like, you flop a set, you're 5-way or 4-way to the flop, and when all the money goes in, it's not the best situation. And then the other hands I would start to call would be maybe like some ace-x suited that can actually flop the nuts and have like good imply odds when you get actually like flush over flush. So yeah, those are the type of hands I would be I would probably be squeezing pocket eights or better, maybe sevens if I had a bit more information on Jamie J. But like as a standard, I would squeeze pocket eights plus and then pocket sevens with 3 other players in it. Like I would not fold like the sevens through fives, and then I would start calling some like ace X suited type of stuff as well. But this hand I would just fold. If I were in the big blind, I would definitely call. Here, I mean, we called King 10 off, which against middle position is fine, but he also made it 2.5x, which is not great. Against smaller size, I think it's a pretty easy defend, but against a 2.5, I mean, it's getting pretty close, and I wouldn't mind either folding or calling, to be honest. But I think calling is fine. As far as on the flop, I mean, he should be using a more polarized strategy with a bigger bet size here. So let's take a look at table 4 and then we can talk about the other ones. On this turn, he should be like, I always say he's gonna be, but like he should be checking back some medium strength hand and use a mixed strategy on the flop here. So I mean, given the fact that he checked back, it might be the case. So once we look to probe here, it's not like we're gonna be betting 7x. It's not like we're gonna be betting 8x. I mean, a hand like ace 9 is kind of like wants to bet, you know, like it's one of the borderline hands that we want to be betting, but like not like that would fit into the smaller size. But we have plenty of stuff that really wants to get value. The flop when checked through. Also, it's going to be checking back some medium strength hands. So it's not like we can just like bet small and get rid of him pretty easily. So when we do bet here, we basically have to say, okay, I know you have like queen 10. I know you have like pocket 10s or pocket jacks or a hand like ace 8. I mean ace 8 maybe, but like he could have like some medium strength hands. So we know you have those type of hands in your range. So basically when we do bet, we want to use a really big size. We want to be using something like an overbet and basically say, okay, I know you have like queen 10, but I have that beat. So we use a big size with a polarized range. And I think this hand is quite perfect to actually be overbetting here. We block some Jack 10 that you decide to check back the flop with. We also have a diamond, we have an open ender, so we can bluff on diamond runouts, plus we block some of the nuts combos that he can have that he could potentially just check back the flop with sometimes. So yeah. I would like a big bet here, so like something like 9 big blinds. I like it. And we get a quick fold. Here 5-4 suited. Very close. I don't mind the call here with the 2 recreational behind. That shows me that he's paying attention. I think it's totally fine there. If he calls, I'm probably like, if the regular calls, I'm probably calling as well. But like if he folds, I'm just like, he doesn't even have a full stack. Like if he had a full stack here, I would probably end up calling. But now he only has 70 big blinds, so we have to be a bit careful. Those hands really benefits from seeing flop, turn, and river. So like when he starts to be short and he can just bet flop, jam, turn, like it really, really sucks for those type of hands. So like also the fact that he's only 70 bigs deep is not great. If pot would have called, I would have called, but yeah. Yeah, I would just fold it pre-flop. I mean, on one hand, he didn't make it big. You know, if he made it like 11, it would be a super easy fold. He made it 9, so I mean, it's a bit closer. So queen, queen six, board that we can be very aggressive. Having the ace of spade is pretty nice. We have to make sure that we don't overdo it because we're going to be opening a bunch of like king eight off, right? Ace, all the ace six off. So basically we have a bunch of like one spade combo in our hand, right? Like since we're going to be opening hands like 9-10 off, jack-10 off, that type of stuff. So we have to make sure that when we do bet, we have to be very selective here, because if we are not, with all the offsuit combos we have in our range, we might be way overdoing it. Not on the flop, but I'm talking about more on the turn, because I think this is a board that we can just bet very aggressively on the flop. And I think this is a fold. Against the raise, I mean, like, we're gonna, like, again, this is exactly what I'm saying, right? Like, we have so many offsuit ace-x in our range. Like, if we call this, like, this one, that means we call them all. Like, we're just gonna be way overdoing it. He's gonna be, like, not check raising enough, so he's not gonna have enough bluff. He's gonna have plenty of, like, value hands, that type of stuff. So I would potentially call like hands like ace-10 off plus with the backdoor straight draw, and maybe hands like, yeah, something like that. But like something like this, I think is just like way overdoing it. So we have to be careful in those wider ranges scenario, especially with the offsuit versions. So he checks. I mean, now what? Like it's kind of hard because, I mean, now our range is pretty wide. Plus, we have some showdown value, but like we have one of the worst ace-x in our range, so I don't mind betting here again. And then bluffing on, spade runouts. And then if he were to actually call the turn, this is not a hand I would be like. If he were to call the turn and then the river is not a is not a spade, I would tend to just check. Because we have some slight showdown value against like a weaker flush draw that he can have, right? So I would be looking to basically bluff on a spade run out and then check. Like on non-spade, we're gonna have other stuff that we can bluff. Here with the pocket jacks, we're gonna be 3-betting always, never calling. I mean, now you take a look on the left, you have Senior Chocolate, where he's supposed to be a crazy fun recreational. I mean, if he's super crazy, we could start about like having a calling range here, trying to let him like squeeze and all, but with this hand I don't think it really works that well, since, I mean, it's a strong hand, but if we get to the flop four-way, it's always gonna suck. So I would just like strictly 3-bet with pocket jacks here almost always, and I would have to need a really big read that he's like just a super maniac to actually be calling. I would much prefer calling a hand like aces there. But other I do that maybe like 2% of the time when the situation is right. So I would just stick, because the fact that if he is actually crazy, right, and you 3-bet here, like he's gonna be cold calling, he's gonna be 4-betting, he's gonna be doing some other stuff as well. So like it's not like you just get to like kick him out of the pot. Like if he's truly crazy, I mean, he's just gonna do a whole bunch of stuff like cold call 3-bets and then 4-bets like garbage and that type of stuff. Against a 4-bet here, it's not an ideal spot, but I mean, we will not be folding. Just we can mix between calling and 5-betting. On this board, he should probably have a dunking range. He's gonna have 5s, 4s. He's gonna have hands like 6, 7, pocket 8. So he's gonna have like all the nuts. We're not really gonna 3-bet 5s and 4s. You should not have them at 100% frequency, but I do think that people at lower stakes might have them too much. So all in all, like this is a board where you should actually be dunking, in my opinion. And as far as our actual hand, I mean, this hand really wants to, like, if we want to have a checking range, checking a hand like aces makes a lot more sense, or we can check a hand like 5-6 that we 3-bet sometimes, or 8-7 that we 3-bet sometimes. And then a hand like this just wants to be betting the flop. And I would stick with something like a half pot size. I wouldn't go crazy in position. Yeah, I mean, the really big size works well when we're like not out of position, but usually it's when the board is not great but still safe. So if the board was like 8-5 deuce, it would, like, a bigger size would make even more sense, just because of the fact that the board is still draw heavy, it's still not great, but there's plenty of turns that we won't really mind here. But like here, a 6, a 7, flush draw, let's say an overcard. I mean, it started to have like a lot of turn cards that we actually don't like. So just betting, like building a huge pot is not the best idea in general on those type of board. So like you see like a very big difference, let's say small blind button, when the board is 8-5 deuce, where first of all, like, you cannot have a straight, right? And also there's going to be many more turns that we will be happy to see. So you see that like on 8-5 deuce, it's actually using like a 3/4 or like even a pot bet. But whenever the third card connects and there's actual straights made on board and all that type of stuff, you see that the sizing usually tends to shift down. So basically, like here, I would probably stick with something like a half pot bet. I think that's fine. Now, like, as far as the strategy, to be honest, I wouldn't even be surprised if he has little to no calling range. And would check raise, like min check raise pretty much his entire strategy. Like, I really want to take a look into this. Like in a few minutes, I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to make a quick sim and take a look at this, how you should be approaching it with that sizing and what type of sizing we should be using, because I think it's very interesting. So let's just go through the hand and then we can take a look at the sim afterwards. So he folded. All right, give me 1 second, guys. I'll be back. All right, guys, I'm back. I just did the sim and then I was right. I mean, we took a look at one of the other live play videos. We took a look at the donking stuff a bit, but I tried to, like, I mean, my main idea was that, like, so since we bet this big on this board, like, how should villain out of position react? So the first thing I looked is like whether out of position was dunking or not. And as far as in position 3-betting range, I gave him like around a 15% range. It looks pretty similar to what does the pre-flop Bible look like, something like that. So we have to 3-bet pretty wide in these positions. And then as far as his calling range, this is what I gave him. So he's gonna have like 9s, 8s, 7s at pretty high frequency, and then the other ones at discounted frequency. Suited connectors about discounted frequency as well, and then the suited broadways as well, because it's gonna be a mix between 4-bet and call. I think people might be like not 4-betting enough these type of hand. You would see that like even some hands are getting 4-bet like much, like even more than this here. But again, like when we're facing a 3-bet and we're out of position, it just sucks. So we have to be calling pretty tight. We have to be 4-betting aggressively. So our range is quite strong once we do call. I mean, even though we don't have like all their super strong hands, like the hands that we do call are pretty strong. So we have a decent amount of equity against his range. Still, if we miss the top portion of our range. So if we take a look here, I mean, like we see that once we look at the sim, we see that villain should be donking 95% of his range. So he should be leading out with a small size with his entire betting range. So then what happens? It kind of like, I want to say, like, kind of messed up like my arguments of like, because I wanted to see how to react versus the bigger size as out of position, right? But the problem with this exact sim is that try to think about it, right? If villain is incentivized to actually be donking his entire range out, what does that mean for in position c betting range? Like, I'm gonna give you a few seconds to think about it, but what do you think in position should be doing here as part of our c betting strategy? Like, it's actually donking here to prevent the fact, because I ran another sim, so let's take a look into it. It's right here where I gave I didn't give the option to donk, right? And then I gave in position 3 sizes to see which type of sizing it would prefer on this board. But as you're gonna see, I mean, it's checking back 99.96% of the time. So we should be checking back range here in theory, right? So I mean, like, it kind of messed up my what I wanted to do, right? Because I wanted to try to take a look into how out of position should be reacting versus the big bet, but it's like never betting. So I mean, this is also something pretty cool to see, right? That we should be checking back range here. Most people do not. If we're playing against a recreational, do we want to be checking back range here? The answer is no. But it's nice to have that in mind, that, I mean, we have to be careful about these type of spots. I know people are c-betting way too much. Also, like, we see that donking range is a thing on that board. For example, cutoff versus button. But it's also to prevent, like, the donking part of the range for out of position is also to deny equity. So to prevent the in position to actually check back his entire range, right? But if in position is actually c-betting too much on that board, which like 99.9% of the player pool will do, that means that donking is still, like, not donking is still okay, because villain will still be putting too much money into the flop by c-betting way too much. So what I did to try to get an idea for you guys to how to approach bigger sizes out of position is that I took a board where it would still have a c-betting range, but it's much more disconnected, and we can still be betting, unlike a board like this. So I ran a third sim. It's not this one. It's going to be this one. So I ran a third sim where I put a board of 9-5 deuce, which is a lot more disconnected, right? He's going to have like fewer sets as well, like deuces. It's going to be even discounted frequency, no 2 pairs, no straights. So this is, again, like I said, a much better board for us because nothing got there, so no straights. He's going to have less sets. There's going to be fewer turn cards that we're gonna hate. So these type of boards we can actually be c-betting. And then I gave around the same sizing as our member use, about 66 to 70% size on the flop. And my thought was that in game, villain, when out of position, should be check min raising and pretty much have no calling range against that size. And we see that against the bigger size here, it's actually check min raising like about 30% of the time, which is quite often. It's folding about 46 and still calling 24% of the time. So I mean, we see that like min raising is definitely a thing. I gave him like 3 options, like min raising a bit bigger, and then also a lot bigger here. But we see like the min raising is definitely preferred, and also we have like a calling range as well. So let's get back into the footage.